So my takeaway from this is that while yes, it's nice to have privacy respecting laws in a given jurisdiction, you can't rely on that. There's always a chance that those laws will change for the worse. Welcome to the Sovereign Computing Show, presented by ATL BitLab. I'm Jordan Bravo, and this is a podcast where we teach you how to take back control of your devices. Sovereign computing means you own your technology, not the other way around.
This episode is sponsored by ATL BitLab. ATL BitLab is Atlanta's Freedom Tech hackerspace. We have co-working desks, conference rooms, event space, maker tools, and tons of coffee. There is a very active community here in the lab. Every Wednesday night is Bitcoin night here in Atlanta. We also have meetups for cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, decentralized identity, product design, and more. We offer day passes and nomad passes for people who need to use the lab only occasionally, as well as memberships for people who plan to use the lab more regularly, such as myself. One of the best things about having a BitLab membership isn't the amenities, it's the people. Surrounding yourself with a community helps you learn faster and helps you build better. Your creativity becomes amplified when you work in this space. That's what I think, at least. If you're interested in becoming a member or supporting the space, please visit us at atlbitlab.com. That's atlbitlab.com. All right, on to our show.
Welcome to the Sovereign Computing Show. I'm Jordan Bravo, and I'm recording here in Atlanta with Stephen DeLorme. And we want to first remind you that you can send a boostergram into the show with a podcasting 2.0 compatible app like Fountain FM or any other app where you can send in lightning boosts, and we will read them on the show. We get to listen to your feedback, and you also help support the show. You may also email us. Our email address is sovereign@atlbitlab.com. And today we have a pretty good topic. We're going to be talking about sovereign and private ways to use GPS and mapping software. But first, we are going to talk about a news article. The company Proton, the makers of Proton Mail and other products that they've rolled out, like Proton Drive, Proton Calendar, etc., they've announced in a blog post a new AI-related product. They call it Lumo, L-U-M-O. And we will have the link in the show notes, as well as we're going to show the article here on the screen for those of you watching. But the gist of it is they are announcing this AI product, you might say cynically, to jump on board the AI hype train, but they are trying to be competitive with other AI tools out there, but with their own Proton twist. So they tout that this is a private AI solution, and they compare themselves to the others like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and those other big dominant players. But they tout the privacy, and they list several features of it. They list no logs. Stephen, can you scroll down a little bit, please?
Oh, down,
yeah.
Let's see. Got it.
So no logs. So they don't keep any logs of your conversations. Zero access encryption. They say your chats are stored using our battle-tested zero access encryption, so even we can't read them. No data sharing. Big tech companies share your data with third-party vendors, advertisers, and government agencies. Lumo's no logs and encrypted architecture ensure we don't have data to share. And then they list their next point is that they're not used to train AI. Unlike other AI services, Lumo doesn't use your conversations or inputs to train large language models. And then their last bullet point that they have here is open. Lumo is based on open source language models and operates from Proton's European data centers. And then they have one of these classic marketing charts where it's like their product and then the other competitors, and theirs has all the green check marks and the other competitors are mostly red X's. So, take that with a grain of salt. But I just wanted to bring this up and bring it to everybody's attention because this is a privacy respecting company who is now putting out an AI offering. And so I have not tried this yet, but it sounds like it could be a good alternative to some of the other providers that give zero about privacy. Whether or not this lives up to its hype, whether it all of the marketing that they purport in their blog post actually is true. In other words, is it really as private as they say it is? That's something we'll have to take a closer look at. Let me ask you, Stephen. I know you use Proton and their suite of products. Have you tried Lumo yet?
I tried it very briefly and happy to see it. I haven't like used it as a daily driver for AI yet, but I think what I prompted it with was the first time I tried it was something like, "Can you tell me which model you are? Can you tell me which AI model or which like AI LLM you are backed by?" I don't know. It's always weird how to phrase that question because you're kind of implying agency. See, the last time I asked that, it said, "I am the Mistral
Ah,
model, backed by a collection of advanced models developed by Proton." But then we asked again, but like, are you Llama, DeepSeek R1, Mistral, etc.? Empowered by a collection of advanced. Okay, huh, interesting. I gotta say, this is also faster than my experience was the other day. So it was like, I felt like it was very sluggish and slow. And, that's kind of been my experience with a lot of end-to-end encrypted stuff, is there's always this kind of extra latency when waiting for stuff to be encrypted and decrypted and all of that kind of stuff. Let's like interrogate this thing a little bit. You seem faster today than when I used Lumo the other day. And you give me an overview of how Lumo works to encrypt my data and safeguard privacy, if at all.
yeah.
That was, a little definitely slower than like Fat GPT, but it's not usable, right? It's definitely not bad. Sure, Lumo is designed with a strong focus on privacy and security. Here's an overview of how it works. Your actions encrypted. All your actions with Lumo are encrypted end-to-end. This means that even Procon cannot access the contents of your conversation. The encryption keys are stored locally on your device, ensuring that only you can decrypt your data. On-device processing. Lumo processes your request locally on your device whenever possible. This minimizes the amount of data that needs to be sent to our servers, reducing the risk of interception or unauthorized access. Secure data transmission. When data does need to be transmitted to our servers, for example, to retrieve information or perform certain tasks, it is encrypted using industry standard protocols to ensure it remains secure during transit. Minimal data storage. Lumo is designed to store as little data as possible. Conversation history is encrypted and stored only if you choose to save it. Regular security audits, all of that. That's really weird that Lumo is claiming that the model is stored locally, which case, if it is, it's probably one of these like super lightweight models, kind of like the one that they had in the Proton Mail that would like finish your emails for you. Yes, does Lumo utilize any kind of trusted execution environment or secure enclave for processing data? In other words, do you have models running in your server, server farm, and are those models running in a TDE? This thing may not know. It could just be bull, BSing us, because LLMs can sometimes be a little bit sycophantic and always say things to please you. But I think I'm really just comparing this in my mind with how like Maple works, the one that's run by the Open Secret folks,
Yeah.
and now it's slowing down. But the Open Secret one is like an actual encrypted backend that the model executes in a trusted execution environment, and they can generate a proof that demonstrates it's encrypted. This sounds like it's different. As of my current knowledge, Lumo leverages Proton's robust encryption practices to ensure your data is protected. While I don't have specific details about the use of trusted execution environments or secure enclaves, Proton is committed to blah, blah, blah. So my kind of take on this, having interrogated this AI, doing it live here, is that I think it's a great step, and I think it's a great that Proton is like entering the AI game. I think the it sounds to me like what they're doing is I can't imagine it, that all of these interactions are actually running from an on-device model. If they are, I mean, it could be the case. They don't advertise it in the blog post, but that sounds like it would be pretty wild if it was. So, assuming that's the case, I guess it's actually pretty private if it's all running from an on-device model. It's just that the problem is that, at least in the current day, it's nowhere. It's not going to be as powerful as like the Claude Sonnet 4 or whatever. It's not going to be as powerful as a GPT 4.0. Just running with this like tiny little model, housed in local storage or whatever. But it's a great start, and I think it's great to have an alternative, all of that. So I'll just have to use it more and see if it's powerful enough to be a daily driver.
I agree. I want to emphasize something you said. So either it's running a lightweight model locally, in which case you would get more privacy, but it's going to be severely limited in power compared with a model that's running on a really expensive GPU farm on their cloud servers. So I would say as soon as you get a chance to use it more, you'll be able to determine how powerful of a model it is by its accuracy and explanatory power. Because I know you've used both lightweight and heavier models. So to me, that'll make itself apparent. If it is apparent that it is powerful and it's running on their servers, and the fact that they're not using any kind of confidential computing like Maple, I think there's kind of a hole in their privacy model. They say that there's no logs, and it's a zero trust model. But at the same time, if they're not using a confidential compute environment, how could they possibly send your query to the server without that ever being detect ever being read by anybody that has server access? Because think about it, it can't be end-to-end encrypted because the model that's on the server has to be able to process it. So to me, that's it's a little misleading there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. The model running on that server has to be processing it. So I mean, it's definitely gonna get like it's gonna be unencrypted at some point. But it's one of those kind of trade-offs that might be good enough because Proton as a company, I think they're pretty committed to privacy at this point, and I definitely think there's a stronger cultural norm around data privacy in Europe. So that could be it could be that that's good enough if they just have this policy that's like, you know, we delete the logs, and if you want your message history saved, it's encrypted the same way the emails and the calendars are. I mean, that's reasonable and probably, a good step. I mean, having a cultural commitment to privacy at your company isn't as good as um, you know, true end-to-end encryption all the way down the stack, but I think it'll go a long way. It's better than not having that cultural commitment to privacy at your company.
Exactly. I want to end on a high note on this, which is if you compare it to other offerings, there's other companies like Google, OpenAPI, where their business model explicitly uses data. Like they collect data and that feeds their whole business model. Whereas Proton, their business model is explicitly not from that, it's from paid subscriptions. So, and like you said, their whole culture, their ethos, and their sort of product that they're selling to their customers is privacy. So they're not going to be monetizing your data. They don't have an incentive to do that. And I think that to me, I would feel much more comfortable using this if I'm worrying about privacy than something like a Chat GPT or a Gemini.
Yeah, and that sounds good to me. And this thing can search the web too, so just that feature works.
That's cool.
I've been for anyone who's listening or just listening only, I've asked it to search the web and find news from Atlanta today. Extreme heat warning. It says next week is going to be a scorcher. Might exceed 110 Fahrenheit in Atlanta next week.
All right. Well, I think we've talked about Lumo enough, but I want to make a quick pivot here. I know we originally had not intended to talk about another article, but there was something I noticed as part of this article, something about Proton, and they said that they're going to be moving. It's in the same announcement. So if you look at the last paragraph here, excuse me if I'm sounding like I'm reading while I'm talking, but if you look at the
Is
last
it the
paragraph, is that it?
building the Euro stack for the future?
Yeah. So it says, let me read this quick paragraph here. Lumo represents one of many investments Proton will be making before end of decade to ensure that Europe stays strong, independent, and technologically sovereign. Because of legal uncertainty around Swiss government proposals to introduce mass surveillance, proposals that have been outlawed in the EU, Proton is moving most of its physical infrastructure out of Switzerland. Lumo will be the first product to move. This shift represents an investment of over 100 million euros into the EU proper. While we do not give up the fight for privacy in Switzerland and will continue to fight proposals that we believe will be extremely damaging to the Swiss economy, Proton is also embracing Europe and helping to develop a sovereign Euro stack for the future of our home continent. Lumo is European and proudly so, and here to serve everybody who cares about privacy and security worldwide.
That's interesting because the narrative around Proton in Switzerland was like more like 7 years ago. It was more like, well, Switzerland has these amazing privacy laws, and that was like the selling point to Proton Mail. It was like end-to-end encryption stored on servers governed by hardcore Swiss privacy laws. Now they're saying those privacy laws are sounds like under threat in Switzerland. So I hadn't heard about this.
Yeah, exactly. The way that they used to advertise it, they made it sound like Switzerland, famously known for its private Swiss banking back, several decades ago, and it now has that same air of privacy when it comes to data in the modern internet age. But as we can see with this, regulations can change on a dime in any given jurisdiction. So my takeaway from this is that while yes, it's nice to have privacy respecting laws in a given jurisdiction, you can't rely on that. There's always a chance that those laws will change for the worse.
This whole Eurostack thing they link to is also interesting. Probably too deep of a rabbit hole to really fully explore, but I mean the gist of this Eurostack website, it's our original idea for a European industrial policy initiative bringing together tech governance and funding for Europe-focused investments to build and adopt a suite of digital infrastructures from connectivity to cloud computing, AI, and digital platforms. So like, in other words, my take on this, not following European politics super closely, is that like we have this kind of movement here to among European players to make sure that there are enough data centers in Europe, that are healthy data centers run by European companies. Because when you think about it, like the whole like just access to compute and energy is probably going to be a huge geopolitical issue. I was listening to another podcast a couple weeks ago that was really fascinating, just getting into the whole idea of like AI as like a warfare concern, because like drones and almost any other kind of modern military system you can imagine is going to rely upon really good calculation, but also like the insights of AI. And so like basically having access to AI is going to be a national security concern. If you have another country that has AI powered warfare and you don't, so you need AI, and to have really great AI, you need really great data centers, and you need also enough energy to power those data centers. So it's kind of interesting because we've certainly seen this, I think, on the U.S. side, some of the like Project Stargate stuff, and this seems like a very similar kind of thing happening on the European side. Like we need enough data centers to actually stay competitive, and we need the businesses, an ecosystem of businesses that use those data centers. So interesting.
The way I see it, like you said, from a geopolitical standpoint, it seems like in the same way that the US doesn't want to be so reliant on, for example, China for various manufacturing, it seems like Europe is concerned that they are too reliant on the US and other countries for all of their data centers and computing needs. So this seems like they're trying to be a little bit more self-sovereign as a European Union, which I can understand that viewpoint.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, let's move on to our main topic today. We are going to hit on something very important for those of you who are trying to stay more private and sovereign with your data, and that is how do we use GPS and maps and navigation while giving up as little of our privacy as possible. So most of us would know that the main dominant players are going to be Google and Apple. Google Maps, Apple Maps. If you're using an iPhone, you probably are using Apple Maps, although you might also be using Google Maps. And then Google, of course, Android phones are going to be using Google Maps almost exclusively. But let's talk about some alternatives. First, I want to introduce this concept of OpenStreetMaps that people might not have heard of. If you go to openstreetmaps.org, you can see the sort of homepage of this project. And this is not a single company, but this is an open source project as kind of denoted by the name, although names can be misleading. For example, OpenAI is not actually open. But in this case, OpenStreetMaps is actually open. And it's open in terms of it's a crowdsourced database of mapping data. So mapping data is very valuable. Google Maps, they mapped out much of the world, and that's what powers their map software. But OpenStreetMaps, on the other hand, is completely free to use by anyone. There are a lot of businesses that use it, and there are several apps. And we're going to look at a couple of those apps that we can use as individuals to navigate. The first one is called Magic Earth. This is downloadable on iOS or Android. And unlike Google Maps, Magic Earth uses the OpenStreetMaps data that we just spoke about. And they also have privacy guarantees in their ethos. When you download it, I remember there's a big banner that pops up on first use that says your data is not being used anywhere else. And it might be under their FAQ as well, if we can navigate there, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Nice looking product.
yeah, or maybe just under their why go with us.
Let's see. I've already lost it. There we go.
So, well, their benefits that they tout, they have offline maps, so you can actually still use it while you have no data connection. You can be in airplane mode, for example, and still be using all the downloaded map data. There's also, they tout privacy first. If you scroll up a little, I think it was one of their first sections on the site. They say privacy first by design, live traffic, smooth navigation, 3D maps, and offline access.
What's their model like, or is this a paid product?
Let's see, coming soon, a private Google and Apple free payment option. Pricing.
We go to 99 cents a year.
So they say they don't track you, we don't sell your behavior, we don't monetize your movement, but building and maintaining a high quality app with global coverage, real-time features, and offline capabilities takes real work and long-term investment. That's why we're introducing a charge of 99 cents per year.
That seems cheap. I'm not complaining.
Did you say that seems steep, the price?
Cheap.
Oh, cheap. Yeah, it does seem very cheap.
Like, that seems like a no-brainer to buy that. I mean, I guess it depends on how good the product is. Have you used it before?
I have. I've been using this for a little while. It's decent. It's gotten me from A to B most of the time. It's not nearly as good UX wise as Google Maps. Or let me rephrase that. The UX is nice. It's just not quite as accurate as Google Maps and as speedy. It's a little slower
Mm.
and occasionally it gives weird directions. But oh, and here's the part where I really noticed a difference. The way it's not as good as Google Maps or Apple Maps. While you can type in any address and it will get you there, the name search functionality is not nearly as good as you might expect on Google Maps. So, for example, if I type in Shake Shack, now that one it'll probably find. But if you type in some lesser known business or name of a location, a lot of times it'll have trouble finding it, and you have to actually do a Google search or do a web search for the address for the business name, find their address, and then paste it in. So that's a little bit of a pain.
Is that because it doesn't store any names of businesses from Google?
Maybe, but it does store some names. So some names it'll find, but others it will not. And I haven't found why that is.
It's probably because like OpenStreetMaps is like a volunteer project.
Yes.
And so like so does Magic Earth use OpenStreetMap under the
Yes,
hood?
it does.
So because OpenStreetMap is a volunteer user maintained project, it could be that there are just some businesses that people have added to OpenStreetMap, and Magic Earth is therefore able to find those. Whereas not all, like, if for any given small business in the US, it's more likely that they're going to be registered on OpenStreetMap. Or I'm sorry, it's more likely that they're going to register themselves on Google My Business so that they can get all these, people coming to their business on Google Business. Not as likely they're going to be on OpenStreetMap.
Yep.
They can be. So that would be my guess as to why it sometimes finds things by a name search and other times doesn't.
Yeah, that's a good point. So the search is only going to be good as the underlying data, and the data, because it's OpenStreetMaps, it's volunteer and crowdsourced. So like you said, if a small business hasn't been added by some volunteer, then it won't be searchable. But as far as GPS and navigation goes, I think it's got really good UX. And I do like the offline feature because Google Maps and Apple Maps do not have that.
The way they present this map is they use different layers than Google does. I'm looking at the OpenStreetMap view of Atlanta. It makes Atlanta look like it's built on a perfect grid system or something.
Which is funny because now living in Atlanta, I know that it's anything but a grid. And
Yeah, it's just an illusion from the way they've turned this thing on, the layers on this map.
that's funny. Yeah, Atlanta has some very windy streets.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all
Cool.
there's to say about Magic Earth. I do think it's got the slickest UI and UX of any app that's using OpenStreetMaps data. So I do recommend it. Go ahead and give it a try. It seems like a pretty good option. I'm going to get into what I currently use in a second, but I want to go through my journey here. So another one that I tried is called Organic Maps. And this is, again, uses OpenStreetMap data. So it's going to have a similar experience in terms of its ability to find and navigate to destinations. However, this one I had a worse experience UX wise. I had trouble, like when you click start and you navigate somewhere, it won't actually, it'll get you most of the way there, but then it's just got a weird UI quirk where it doesn't show you the exact address, and it won't say like here on your right. Like it'll just bring you to the last turn and then kind of dump you on that street, and that's it. Now, maybe I was using it wrong. Maybe I had some setting turned off by accident,
Hmm.
but that was something that was frustrating for me, and I did not end up using this for very long.
Hmm. Yeah, it certainly doesn't look as slick visually as the other one, but
However, it does have the
one.
same feature where you can download the map and use it offline. So it could be useful if you are, let's say, hiking in a place with no data connection, no cell connection, and you just want a map that you can use offline. This is certainly usable. And do you have any other comments on organic maps before we move on to the next app?
That really sounds cool that they have an offline mode for trail, but I'd probably rather just go to straight to Magic Earth if that one works better.
So I used both of these for a while, and Magic Earth was getting the job done. But I recently discovered that Waze is usable on GrapheneOS without using Google Play services at all. So you don't need any account. You don't have to sign in. You can be on GrapheneOS, which is completely de-Googled without even having to turn on Sandbox Google Play. And Waze still works perfectly. So Waze is a great option. I would say it's got as good of UX and map data as Google because Google purchased Waze several years ago. So they've got all the resources of Google. And so it's funny, I've never actually tried Waze's in browser map, but yeah, most people know about Waze at this point, so I don't really need to describe it too much. Waze has really good live information, so like traffic and speed traps and construction and that kind of thing. This is frankly the best option that I tried as far as phone apps without using Google or Apple. And so this was a real game changer when I discovered that I could use this on GrapheneOS. Now, obviously, since Google owns Waze, you're using a Google product, but without logging in, and if you're using other steps to protect your data, like VPNs and not associating your app and your phone with your real identities or any of your accounts, then I think it's a great option. It's very private, and I think the trade-offs there are minimal.
Interesting. Wouldn't have expected the browser one to be so good.
Yeah, I should point out that Waze has both native Android app and native iOS app.
But what are you saying for the one you use on Graphene? You're actually using, are you using the Android app or using the browser version?
I'm using the Android app. The reason I mentioned the browser
Oh,
version
okay.
was simply because we have the browser version open up here right now on the screen. I
I
was just
see.
commenting that I've never seen this browser version of Waze before. But what I use on
I see.
GrapheneOS is the Android native app, and it works perfectly. It's very smooth, very fast, good
Oh, okay.
UX.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So that was my solution for a while, and then just very recently I'm trying something else. I bought a standalone GPS by Garmin, and while this might feel like a step backwards because prior to ubiquitous smartphone GPS navigation, a lot of people use these. These are the standalone apps that you put on your dashboard or stick to your windshield. These are really good options. And I'll tell you what I like about using this currently. One is the privacy benefit. This is not connected to the internet while I'm driving, it's not sending data to any company. And when I do want to update the maps, I can connect it to my home Wi-Fi and just hit update, and it downloads and updates it, so it keeps it current, but it's not always connected. It doesn't require me to use any kind of app on my phone. So I can leave my phone at home if I want to and still navigate places if I so choose. So those are kind of the privacy reasons. And then finally, there's sort of I might call it a UX reason, user experience reason. And for me, that is sometimes I don't want my phone to do everything. I want a dedicated device. So maybe I have my phone in my pocket. I don't want to pull it out. Or maybe I'm using my phone for something else. But I really just want a single device that sits on my dashboard, that's always there, and I don't have to worry about pulling it out or putting it in and mounting it. And it always has the same thing on it, which is navigation. And so far, it's worked out great. So I will continue using that, and I'll report back on if I have any updates that are relevant.
Is this the Tread 2?
The model that I got is called, mine was a lot cheaper. I got it for maybe $180, but
Wow.
I'll find the model and put it in the show notes if anybody's interested. But if you do a search for
Yeah, maybe
Garmin's,
maybe you,
it's pretty, you'll find it.
yeah, it might be that yours was like an older model. This is pretty cool. I mean, it's actually fun to see that they're still making these things. I remember these things were like so high tech in the late 2000s, and then once you know, I don't know, once the iPhones and stuff started going mainstream, it just like it got to the point where like no one wanted to use these things anymore. But it looks like there's still a market for this kind of stuff. I guess it makes sense because like the way they're kind of marketing this is like in the little picture on the screen, it's like the Cane Creek Canyon Trail, and then the other model, it's like they're going through some mountain pass or something. So I guess if you're kind of a outdoors person, the phone just isn't an option. Um, I mean, you need some kind of way to have it all downloaded locally. You need it all downloaded locally on your phone. You can't just expect there to be internet wherever you go. So this device is, designed for storing all the data locally and just routing based on the data it has. Is it powered by the car?
Yeah, you plug it into your, I mean, it has a battery, but I keep mine plugged
Mhm.
into my uh, car power.
Hmm. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, it's like at one point in time, this was a high tech thing. For the most part, it got replaced by smartphones, except for the needs of people who do off roading. And now, because there's still this, off roading market, these products still get built, and privacy conscious people can use this as an option.
Yeah,
That's
it
cool.
is cool. One other feature that I don't personally use, but I just wanted to throw it out there. You can actually, they sell a rear
Mhm.
view camera that you can hook up, and then it connects, I think, wirelessly to your unit. So you can actually use it as like a backup camera. And you can also use it
Oh,
as
that's
a
cool.
front dash camera. So like you could have a front camera and a rear camera, and they could be recording, if you want a dash cam, like for example, people who drive Ubers, or if you're just conscious about somebody hitting your car and you will want video evidence of that in a car crash, you can use your Garmin as the like hub for that.
There's some places where people jump in front of cars to get
Yeah,
payouts, and so you need those. You need the Garmin dash cam to save yourself in case of a lawsuit.
that's right. Since you scrolled to the watches section, I personally have not tried the Garmin watches yet, but I am interested because they are a smartwatch option for people who are privacy conscious, because you can have a smartwatch that is not connected to anything. You could also have a smartwatch that has very minimal connection, very selective about what you let it communicate. So this seems pretty cool. If you're somebody who is always wanted a smartwatch but doesn't like the idea of a all-seeing, all-powerful Apple or Google watch tracking everything and reporting all of your data, then Garmin might be a solution for you.
Hmm, that's cool. Yeah, I think the health benefits are always interesting about watches, just being able to like collect biometric data about your body.
Yeah, and
That could
I
be,
think if you are able to maintain control of that data, then that could be really beneficial without having to submit yourself
yeah,
to the Borg.
yeah, exactly.
Well,
So
go ahead, Stephen.
yeah. I was gonna say there's another interesting map we haven't covered on here,
What's that?
but and which I can it's the BTC map.
Ah, let's bring it up.
I mean, I don't know that I would recommend anybody use this for navigation. I guess I haven't tried it for navigation. I don't know if it works, but I mean, it's interesting because you brought up OpenStreetMap earlier and how Magic Earth and the other one, Organic Maps, like pull from OpenStreetMaps. And so because OpenStreetMaps is this like open API for mapping data, a lot of people will build like other specific use cases off of it. And so btcmap.org is this project to like basically map out all businesses that accept Bitcoin. So if we type in Atlanta, that's weird. ATL BitLab isn't popping up. There we go. And then it's zooming in on my screen. Whoa, we're flying down from like the atmosphere. There we go. We have a little map here, and I can click on it, and it'll give the address and say that accepts on chain and lightning and all this kind of stuff. Similar to how so like basically to add stuff to btcmap.org, what you actually have to do is you have to go to openstreetmap.org and log in, and like you basically make an account as an editor, and you have to plot like a business on the map or find an existing business, and then you need to add some metadata to it. Like they have kind of a spec for adding metadata to map markers and stuff. And so you can add the data there. So it's kind of interesting. OpenStreetMap is like super flexible, and people can build a lot with it.
I like this. I think Bitcoin ATMs are also on that map as well.
Yeah, yeah. If you like zoom out in Atlanta, there's like a ton of there's like a ton of well, I'm not seeing them right now, but I used to see like a lot of ATMs popping up all over the city. There might be like some filter on right now or something. Yeah. I wonder, does OpenStreet charge for their data or whatever?
Good question.
I'm reading right
Right there,
now.
it says you are free to use it for any purpose as long as you credit OpenStreetMaps and its contributors.
OpenStreetMap Foundation. Huh. They must have like donors and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah, I read at one point that several of the big companies that were competitors to Google, so Microsoft and Amazon and some others, I think, they were big donators to OpenStreetMaps because Google has sort of the monopoly on mapping data, and I guess it's in their interest, these competitors, to develop OpenStreetMaps further.
yeah, there's also Mapbox, which I've used where like Hashly uses Mapbox.
Your
I'm not
your audio
sure if
broke
it,
up a little bit, but I'm just going to repeat for the audience. It's Mapbox, Mapbox.com.
I don't know if this is based on OpenStreetMap data or not, but it's a pretty easy API to work with. But I don't
Is
really.
this the one you used for the Hash League project?
Yeah, sure is. Yeah,
It's pretty cool.
I think a lot of what this has to, all this mapping stuff is pretty complicated for me. But it's basically these tile server things. Like a lot of the benefit, like when you're building something that has a map in it, it's like not just the actual data for the map, but the ability to like quickly render that data into something usable. Because it's like when you think about it, it's like depending on like how zoomed in you are dictates like how much data you need to render. So it's like if you're like looking at a city from like if you're looking at the whole US, there's like a level of detail like in terms of like streets and stuff that you just don't want to render, right? Like maybe a couple of interstates, but not streets. And then when you zoom in into like the state level, then you want to start seeing more like state roads and main roads, and you zoom in real far, and then you want to start seeing like tiny little alleyways and individual businesses and buildings and stuff like that. And so it's like you have to have like these like tile servers that really do a good job of like efficiently rendering images of what the map should look like and sending them to your device. That's why it's cool that the Garmin is capable of doing that, all of that stuff offline, I think. Because I don't know, it's complicated engineering. I mean, I guess humanity's kind of figured it out at this point, but there's definitely a lot of engineering that went into making mapping possible on the computer.
Yeah, it is fascinating. All right. Well, was there anything else you wanted to cover regarding Mapbox or maps in general?
No, I don't think so.
Let's take a look at our boostograms. I think we got a couple of boosts into the show since our last podcast episode. We had an anonymous person, also known as Wardermoth, wrote in and boosted with 2100 sats and said, "Always a good day when a new episode of Sovereign Competing drops." And then he or she boosted in with a follow-up with 210 sats and said, "Computing, haha." So that's a typo correction there. Thank you for that, Anonymous. We appreciate your boost and your message. And then Keith Sharp boosted in with 21,000 sats. Beautiful number there. ATL BitLab, ATL Bit Devs, always the relevant and useful lowdown on Freedom Tech. And I'd like to read Keith Sharp's profile blurb. It says, "Boomer Pleb Node Runner Realtor." Very nice. Thank you very much, Keith. We appreciate that boost and your message and love hearing from you. Well, that's all the boost we have for today's show. Remember, if you want to boost in, you can do so with Fountain FM or Podverse or any other podcasting 2.0 apps. You can also email us, sovereign@atlbitlab.com. We'd love to hear your experience on this topic. Have you tried any maps other than the big ones by Apple and Google? Have you tried Waze? Have you tried any standalone GPSs? What have your experiences been? Boost in or write in and let us know. And with that, we'll see you next time, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Catch you later. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to learn more about anything that we discussed, you can look for links in the show notes. That should be in your podcast player, or you can go to atlbitlab.com/podcast. On a final note, if you found this information useful and you want to help support us, you can always send us a tip in Bitcoin. Your support really helps it so that we can keep bringing you content like this. All right, catch you later.